I didn't do a handout. I just was kind of truthfully too tired. So I'm actually really excited. Today we get to talk about, my favorite stuff is the psych stuff, the development. And today we're going to start talking about infant development, which is really, really appropriate as we just had a baby. So, and he's really wonderful. And so
what's his name?
His name is
so behind.
I don't know. His name is Noah Bear.
Oh.
Middle name Bear.
I love the middle name.
Thank you. Thanks. We're getting a lot of criticism, but I feel confident with it. I feel right.
You made the right choice between
Yeah.
that and Rainbow. So.
Yeah.
Well, I can totally see graduation when his name is being called.
I feel like he's gonna learn to love the middle name
Right.
Bear.
Bear is a manly name.
It's pretty.
Fair, But I can totally see like
it's
on his
pretty
high school
tough.
graduation or his college graduation. It's
Yeah.
like, Noah Bear.
So the good news is I didn't make a handout also because the books itself, I actually really like the material in here. So I'm gonna talk through it, but the core stuff is in here. So I think it's really important. We just even start with talking. It's like, why do we care about infants? So when we're talking about infants, we're talking about birth to 2 years old. Okay, that's the age range that we're just going to talk a little bit about briefly. Why? Are you guys going to be doing Sunday school classes with infants? Do you see any Sunday school classes for 6-month-olds? How come?
God, no.
Thank God, no. Why?
Because they're inconsolable.
Right, because why? What's the point, right? So why is it important, why am I wasting your time to do a whole lesson on infant development?
Because you might have to care for them at some point.
Awesome, okay. So because even though, you'll have your classes, the likelihood that you will probably have the opportunity to serve by taking care of an infant is pretty high, right? Whether it's babysitting, whether it's taking care of a friend, and there's lots of church functions where we need childcare, like Dio has helped with a lot of it, a lot of you guys have, I think you have too, Maya, that need for taking care of that age group is really, really high. And it's also not that easy all the time. It's not super intuitive. So I just want to give you a few ideas about what they're like and what they need and how to do it. That's goal 1, okay? Just kind of the basics of you might run into infants. Goal 2, there's 3 goals I have in mind. Goal 2 is, guys, if we don't understand how infant development works and don't understand this is the key phrase here, attachment, okay? We're gonna talk about what that is, attachment, then we're gonna have a hard time understanding how we can get our kids and the people we serve to attach to us and to attach to God, okay? Attachment happens at this stage. It's kind of invisible. It's kind of hard to see, but there's some key things that I want you guys to just hear from me about how we can help that happen and how we can help parents make that happen and how we can see that older on. So the third thing is you guys may become parents someday. And if you do, it doesn't hurt to kind of hear a little bit about what to expect. Because God knows I'm really grateful to hear some of these things. And a lot of, even in the last week since Noah's been here, there's been a lot of surprises. So, and I'm a child psychiatrist. So, okay. So, the way that the development series was split up by the person that originally did it was, there's many different ways to split up development. There's hundreds of different philosophers and psychologists and all these people that split it up into little groups. The one that she chose is this guy named Piaget. You may have heard of him. He's a Swiss dude, and his development really focuses on what's called cognitive development. So it focuses on the mind, okay? There's other developmental theorists that focus more on attachment, others that talk about life goals. Piaget is not bad. I like Piaget, but I'm also going to introduce with you another one that I really like. His name is Erikson. Erikson is well known for kind of having each stage has things that you have to meet to progress to the next stage. And I find that it's more like psychological development. So let's talk about babies, okay? Babies, when they come, what are they like? How do you describe a newborn baby?
Needy. Needy.
Needy. What do they need?
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay. What are their basic needs? Food.
Clothes.
Clothes.
And shelter.
Shelter. So guys, sleep. Okay.
Being
so
changed.
being changed. Okay. So let me just give you a scenario to start with. say the mom, you're doing a child care service, right? Mom drops off the kid is really sweet for the first 5 minutes, right? And then all of a sudden the mom is gone and the kid is flipped out, like, where the heck is my mom? And the world starts crying, unconsolable. What do you do? What are the things you want to think about when you have a crying baby? What can you do?
Are we talking about newborn or how old?
Let's talk about a newborn. Let's talk about, like a 1-month-old. Okay. Rocking.
Is
Okay.
there something about like putting them next to your heart or something that calms them down?
Great. Okay. Good. So you're talking about having them hear the heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, this is hard to do as a servant, but it's something you should know. It's called skin to skin. Is actually really good for soothing and also really good for attachment. So having them, you get them naked and you get yourself. I've tried this, although Noah doesn't love it because of my hair. He's like, where's the skin? He loves it with Helena, but he's like, what the heck is this? He didn't say skin the beast. So, yeah, a rug, yeah. It's just like more clothes. So that works. What you want to think about with newborns is you want to think about where they came from, which is the womb, okay? So you want to think about doing your best to recreate a womb-like environment, all right? So that's why a little bit of swaying actually helps. Why? Because in the womb, there was so much movement, right? So they're actually constantly being rocked in the womb. Another thing is the heartbeat, because they heard the heartbeat. They're right there. Womb's here, heart's here, they heard the heartbeat constantly. What else did they hear?
Your voice.
They heard our voice. So talking can often help. Like for instance, Noah, he actually heard a lot of music because I like to play the piano and we played a lot of music all the time. So one thing with Noah is that anytime he's really like having a hard time, I just play the piano and Anne-Marie can attest to this. He actually goes to sleep like right away. It's actually really cool. And then I stop because I'm tired. It's like half an hour later and I stop and he like wakes up and I'm like, oh, like I'm tired. So then I just play Spotify or whatever. But thank God for that. But so you think about what they heard, which was voices. Another thing they heard is in the womb, there's lots of blood vessels, okay, that go through so they heard this shh sound. So this is why parents, and actually it really works. The best way to do it is not to go gently. Actually, to take the baby's ear next to your mouth and you aggressively shh into their mouth, because that's what the vessel sounded like. So I'm telling you guys what's called the 5. There's this book I really like called The Happiest Baby on the Block. It's by this guy named Dr. Harvey Karp. He talks about the 5 S's for soothing. So there's 2 things I want you to keep in mind. When you have a crying baby, you first want to think about what their needs are. So their needs are food. Is he hungry? Okay, maybe. And how would you know if a baby's hungry?
To cry.
Sometimes that's a late sign. But what are some earlier signs to know if a baby's hungry?
Like sucking?
Great, so they'll kind of do what's called rooting. They do this thing like that. Like that. Like they're not really sucking, they're just kind of like making another thing that's often turn their head to the side a little bit. And then a little bit more stirring than normal. Those are early signs for hunger, okay? Once you've hit crying, that means he's been hungry for a while and we haven't picked up on it, right? Another thing is keep tracking of the time. With a baby, okay, even up to a year or 2 years old, they have very regular like time. So like how often do you feed a newborn? Do you guys know?
2 to 3 hours.
Every 2 to 3 hours. It's hell for parents, but it's what they need, right? So if a parent is going to leave you the kid, they're going to give you bottles or whatever, you have to know when was they last fed, when is their next feeding due, and think about like, that. Okay, so number 1 reason why baby's going to cry is going to be food. What's another one?
Needs to be changed.
Changed. So not all babies get bothered by dirty diapers. A lot do though. So check, okay? What's another one? Attention, right? They just need stimulation. That could be talking to them, that could be the holding. Sometimes, they'll cry when they're just left. They're not actually in pain, they just want to spend time with you. That's just a way of saying, hey, I want your attention. Pay attention to me. What's another one? Another need.
Uncomfortable positions.
Which can be caused by?
Gas.
Okay. So another thing to keep in mind, we learned this with Noah this week. If you don't know what's going on, try burping. Burping almost always works. So that, like, and how, you guys know how to burp a baby? Okay. So there's 2 ways that I like. You hold the baby like this. You can like, okay, if this is a baby, and this is the head, you kind of hold the head like that, your hat like that. So you have to stabilize their neck, right, early on. Another way is you put them across your shoulder like this. This is also a very soothing position for babies. So we talked about, so I was going to tell you about the 5 S's, okay, of soothing. So first you try to meet their needs. If they're still being, you've burped, you've tried to feed, but they don't seem hungry, or you just fed and there's being, this is after feeding, what's going on. So you try the 5 S's. 1 is shh, okay. 2 is swaddle. Do you guys know what a swaddle is? Do you know why swaddles work?
So wait, define a swaddle in case
Okay.
not everyone knows what it is.
So a swaddle is when you take a baby, right? So I'm a baby, and you put them on top of a blanket or a swaddle is what they're called. Sometimes it's blanket or swaddle, and then you basically pin their arms down,
So basically,
and you pin. Yeah. So yeah, that's actually good.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So if this Bible is a baby,
It's like making a baby burrito.
it's like making a baby
Yeah.
burrito. So I won't do it exactly, but it's
You're
like
right.
it's all wrapped up so
There's
that
different
everything is
So they
tied up
can't
like this.
move.
It's like a
Yeah.
straight jacket with the head just.
Weren't they like that in the womb?
That's exactly
It's like
why.
the fetal position.
So you're basically giving them the comfort of being surrounded by the womb. So first S is, second is,
Swaddle.
third is suck, okay? So even if it's not time for feeding, you can give them something to suck. Really early newborns, the pediatricians don't recommend you do a pacifier because you don't want to confuse if they're breastfeeding the passy with the breast. But what you can do is you can take your finger, you can put it in the mouth, and that will almost like Noah loves that normally. So like if he's just being uncontrollable, I just have him suck for a couple minutes and he's like calm. So 3 is suck, 4 is shake or swing, okay? So that what Dio was talking about, and that's also in the womb kind of thing. The 5th is the position, which is you put them either on their side or on their stomach. So their stomach, you put them like on your chest like this, they're kind of on your stomach like this, or you have them cradled on their side. So babies sleep really well on their back. When they sleep, you have to have them on their back. Do you guys know why? Because of what's called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome. There's a higher incidence when they sleep not on their side. So when babies sleep, they have to be on their back. But if you're trying to console a baby, you can put them on their side and have them kind of cradle like this. And if you're a woman and you put them and the head is like this, the likelihood is they're going to try to do stuff here.
Not only if you're
Just so you know. Not only, that he
Yeah,
does
they
that
do
with
it
me
for
too.
men too.
Okay. Is this too much information or is this helpful?
No, it's
Just to
good.
give a little background. Okay. So in here, she gives you all the developmental milestones of like what you should expect for every. So let me give you a true or false question. And I forgot to do this. Well, you guys should just
Okay.
vote without these. Yeah. True or false? When a baby's born, a baby's vision and hearing is not fully developed at birth.
True.
So everyone agree it's true? It's actually false. So,
What?
yes. So their vision is not developed. Their hearing is. Their hearing is fully developed early on. It develops in the womb really early. But vision, absolutely not. So vision, they can see like just kind of shapes and shadows, some colors, but that's it. And they see really kind of only like an 8 to 10 inch distance basically from like boob to face. Basically. So that's basically, yeah, it's like survival, right? They're just like, oh, there's like my mother, kind of the shape of my mother. That's basically all they can see initially. But hearing, this is why like music works, talking works, shing works, because they're hearing perfect. Okay, I know that was a trick question. No, I do trick questions.
I know vision. I didn't
Yeah.
know about the hearing.
Yeah, the hearing is important because I think people often forget because and this is well, I'll talk about this now since I'm trying to rush this here. Let's talk about language development. What's the most important thing for helping the babies develop their language?
Speaking.
To
and
speak
just
to
having
them,
them
right?
speak.
So it's really easy to forget because they're not talking and they're not engaging with you. That they, it's like we don't normally have one-sided conversations with people, but with babies you have to have one-sided conversations. So like it's really important that you're narrating everything possible. You're using as much language as you can. If you want them to learn another language, use both languages. So you want them to like really, and this is important since we're talking about service. if you want a baby to like get used to the church, and then they need to hear the liturgy. They need to attend it in person. You play it at home. Like these are things that they need. Like if you want them to learn, like be comfortable with whatever, they need to start hearing it from birth, right? And even in utero, like I believe in utero, he actually heard the music that I was playing, because like I notice there are certain styles of music that comfort him better, like because that's what I played more or whatever. So that's what I
It could
think.
also be for the liturgy as well when they're in the womb.
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
It's really important that pregnant mothers in the church. Really important. Okay, so that's basically all I want to say about language development. So talking about kind of their basic development, when you're thinking about development, we usually think about it in categories, okay? So we talk about language, like when do babies start speaking usually?
9 months.
Ish, when's baby's first word usually?
Close to a year.
About 6 months. And when we're talking about word, we're talking about things like dada, baba, things like
Yeah.
that. They don't actually know what it means. So 9 months is when they start to actually like kind of attribute, they might say baba, but they actually mean baba, like before they're just blabbering, right? And then when are like full sentences being spoken? About a year. So a year and a half. What big developmental milestone happens at a year? Walking. Okay. So we talk about language development. Now we're going to talk about motor development. So what comes before walking?
Crawling.
Crawling, then
Standing.
standing with support, and then standing without support, and then walking with support, and then walking without support happens at 12 months, at 1 year. So, and then after that, then they can walk upstairs like at about 18 months, and then running at 2 years. So let me ask you something. Say you're regularly helping a family out as part of your service, and you're noticing that the kid is like now like 18 months, a year and a half, and the kid still isn't walking. What could you do? What do you do when you're noticing that they haven't met their developmental milestone? What could you do as a
Like-
servant?
When they're at church, you mean? Or
So say, I'm giving the scenario, say like, as part of your service, you're helping a family and you're regularly babysitting, or you're regularly taking care of this child and get to know them well, and you're seeing that this 18-month-old is not walking.
Or even just a sibling of one of your
Whatever,
siblings.
yeah, that's
Very-
right, you're,
Gently
yeah,
and politely ask the parents if there's a reason why not.
great. And they say like, oh, is that bad? They don't seem to know. Then what do you do?
Then you explain to them that it's not bad, it's just that by this time most babies have developed and it is something that they should be working on.
They say,
practicing.
oh, then what do I do about it? What
Show
could
them.
you do? Okay, so then what could you help direct a parent to do if they're like, oh, we need to get some help, what do I do?
can you teach them things to help with the baby?
Yeah.
I would leave that more to the professionals. So what I want to tell you now is just kind of what professionals you want to go to. So there's, whenever you're seeing as a servant what a developmental delay or something's a little off, you can refer the parents to what's called the regional center. The regional center is basically a big organization that is connected with all kinds of ways to help families that have developmental delay, with kids with developmental delay, mental retardation, or autism. That's their focus. So anytime there's something a little off like that, encourage them to get a formal evaluation by the regional center. And each district, each area is going to have a different. So where we live, it's Harbor Regional Center. In this area, it's West LA, West Side Regional Center.
South Bay is
Harbor.
Harbor.
So you're saying when
So,
there's
yeah.
a definite,
When there's a
retardation
suspicion,
or something?
when there's a suspicion of some delay, and the family hasn't gotten any services yet, this is where to start.
But what if you know that the delay is being caused because either the parents or whoever's raising the baby was not aware that they have to help the baby with this?
I would be careful about saying why it was caused, because this delay is actually very complicated. So the formal evaluation for evaluating why delay happens is extremely involved, and it can be, so like, why does delay happen? Why do kids delayed? About 100 million things. It could be autism, it could be intellectual disability, it could be like something like this, like they weren't getting stimulated enough. It could be like a bazillion, it could be a medical issue. There's a billion things, and I would not just say I know the reason. and encourage them to get a formal evaluation if delays happen.
Also, keep in mind that when we talk about milestones, there's a range. Like, walking generally happens by
Yes.
12 months, but we can, up until 18 months, we're not really worried either. It's just
Yeah.
sort of like, oh, and boys sometimes develop later than girls. So you'll see girls like chatting sooner. Boys are like being boys, or just like, I don't know, ADHD.
Motor development usually happens more quickly with boys. Language development usually
Okay.
happens a little bit later with boys.
So, but be aware that there are ranges. It's not immediately pathological, like at 12 years and a day, or 12 months and a day. There are ranges for everything, but if you're noticing, or if mom or dad seems distressed about any of these developmental issues, it doesn't have to all be cognitive. It could be just motor delay. You guys should be aware of the resources.
Yeah, okay, so any questions about this stuff so far? So I just wanted to wrap up by talking about emotional development. So with emotional development, we're typically talking about what's called attachment. So what does attachment mean? Have you guys heard this term before?
It's like I'm forgetting the word when a baby first imprintation, right?
It's different from imprintation.
Okay.
You're seeing attachment?
Attachment, yeah. Attachment essentially just means bonding and safety, connecting. Primarily, we're talking about the parents, like the main caregivers, but we're talking about any caregiver. So you guys included, like when you're as a Sunday school servant or as you're taking care of a kid, how they're able to connect with you when the world is when they're not comfortable, how they're able to come to you for refuge and safety, okay, and be comforted by you. So a securely attached infant, okay, is presented with a new scenario, okay? Say the first time they're in a crowd and it's really noisy and this is new, there's all these new voices and all this stuff. What's the typical response?
They take them out of the...
No, the typical response
oh,
when they're
child,
new is
they
going to be
cry.
they're going to cry, right?
Yeah.
It's overwhelming, it's stimulating, they don't know, this is new. So a securely attached infant with a new environment like this can come to mom, and mom can help connect and soothe through this new experience and help make it safe. If they're not securely attached, what we call insecure attachment, then the mom can try, but it's still going to be a new scary because mom is not comforting. Mom is not doing it for the baby. So so I mentioned this Erickson dude. The stage for infancy from birth to 2, his psychological goal is called trust versus mistrust. So the key thing that happens during this stage, during infancy, is that they learn that the world isn't necessarily a hostile place. That they learn that there can be safety and comfort in people that love me, and that I can trust the people that are taking care of me to meet my needs. That only happens when a baby has a need and it's met over and over. If a baby has a need, I'm hungry, and the baby doesn't get fed. If the baby has a need, I'm uncomfortable, and the baby isn't made comfortable. Whatever, over and over and over and over, they're gonna learn early on that I'm gonna have a need and no one's gonna care, and it's not gonna be met. But if a baby their needs are met, they're gonna learn, oh, sometimes I have needs and sometimes I'm uncomfortable, but if I stick through it, the people around me, my caretakers, people that love me, are going to take care of me and make sure my needs are met. This is so crucial because you will see adults that don't have secure attachment. You will work with adults who don't have a secure attachment, and these are going to be the people that are going to have a harder time attaching to God. Why? Because God essentially is our big caretaker, okay? When we have a need, emotional, physical, spiritual, and no one else is meeting it, what do we do as human beings, as Christians? We turn to God, okay? If we've had secure attachments in our life, then we can believe that God will be able to do this, to be able to take care of it for us. We'll have that trust that God can be there for us. There are people that struggle with even having that belief, that trust. It's like, yeah, I have this need, but what does God care? And that often comes from, psychologically speaking, comes from infancy. So you're not going to necessarily be doing like an evaluation of every person you work with, their childhood, but I get to, and it's enormously important. So I get to, like, when I'm working with a kid, I spend 3 hours getting to know the kid, and about an hour of that is figuring out what happened during their infancy, because so much of that will like, help me understand why they are the way now. Because if they have a secure attachment with their family, then they should be able to have a secure attachment now. But oftentimes they don't have they have an insecure attachment, so we have to figure out how to rework things so that they can develop a secure attachment. So you have to understand, not everyone's going to be able to, like, I think all of us are fortunate that we had parents that were very responsive, but even in the Coptic community, believe it or not, there's quite a few that don't have that experience. So, okay, so we talked about emotional development, we talked about language, we talked about motor a little bit, cognitive. So cognitive is the Piaget part, Piaget talks about this stage as the sensory motor. So essentially, everything that's happening is happening through their senses, primarily in the beginning through, and then very soon after, vision is developing pretty quickly. So those are going to be the two, and then of course they're having a lot of taste. They love to taste things, put things in their mouth, right? Let me ask you, true or false? Babies, okay, even newborn babies, do they have thoughts or no thoughts? Well, that's not true or false question. But would you guys say that babies have thoughts?
Yes.
Yes.
True or false?
Yes.
How do you know?
True. Because they're constantly observing. They're constantly you can see their expression on their face, like what's happening, what's going on. So I personally think that their thought process is good. It may not be obviously high and yeah, but it's like they're curious, they're wondering, they're thinking.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, well said. Exactly. They're definitely having thoughts. They're definitely learning. Do you guys know how much of the brain develops just between birth to 2? So when a baby is born, 25% of their brain is developed. Okay, so pretty minimal. Okay, we're gonna say 100 is like what adults have. Okay, 0, they're 25%. By age 2, do you guys know how much that jump is?
Katie?
75%. Yeah. So they're developing 3 times as much brain in just 2 years. Okay. Then the rest of the development from 75 to 100 happens between 2 and age 26. Okay. The brain is still actively developing up until 26.
Right.
So you guys are still actually mostly in development.
Developing.
Yeah.
Well, that's why it's also important to talk and stimulate it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you got to read the books. You got to tell them what you're doing. You got to, do the music, and all these things. The visuals, you really want to you really want to try to engage them as much as possible, and that will really make such a big difference for the rest of their life because so much brain development is happening. One last concept that she wanted you to know, and I think it's kind of fun. I don't know, it's super relevant for. But have you guys heard of object permanency? It's the main thing about Piaget that he likes to talk about from 0 to 2. Object permanency is this idea that babies from 0 to 2 don't completely understand when there's an object in front of the baby, and it goes away, that it still exists in the world, and it can come back. So this is why peekaboo is super exciting for babies, okay? Because we think it's just like peekaboo, but they actually believe, okay? Their thinking is that you played a magic trick on them, all right? That you just whoosh into the existence, oh my God, they're no longer present, and then they're back again. That is it's like magic each time. So to understand that is really important, because to understand why does the baby cry when I'm just walking out of their line of vision? I'm still in the room because they think you just vanished. They think you no longer exist. Yes.
But you
Exactly.
can keep talking, right? And they can
So you can continue talking. You can continue making your presence known, even if it's not visual. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if it's just the visual piece, they're gonna think you vanished. Yeah. Okay.
So then,
yeah.
I have a question/comment.
Sure.
As far as just sort of knowing how one's attachment from infancy,
Yes.
like, so we now know attachment and infancy, you know,
Super important.
is important and kind of almost like is a foreshadowing of, you know, how you'll be as a teenager, child, et cetera, you know, that kind of thing. But I guess, do we have future lessons where we talk about, okay, so this child didn't get their needs met, and they're totally, you know, behaviorally like challenging in the classroom. We'll talk about these things later then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, because we
It's
need to also
super-
deal with reality.
Right. Like it's super tempting to kind of try to like talk about it all now, but I
Yeah,
think
no,
that
I know.
like we'll all forget, and we're gonna get a chance to talk more about it. But yeah, I think what I'm hoping that we're doing here is we're setting the stage so you can kind of keep those blinders open. Like, oh, this kid seems like nothing really, you know, like he doesn't seem like it's easy for him to think that God cares about him or whatever, or attaching to me or anybody else. He seems like to be having difficulty trusting people and developing deep relationships. Once you can think about, oh, this happened in infancy, we'll talk about strategies and ways to continue to pick up on it and how to change it. So the good news is, while it makes it harder as a servant with people that are dealing with insecure attachment, it's not impossible. So people with insecure attachment can still attach to God, can still attach to you. It's possible. It happens. It takes more work. It takes us being like very intentional about how to develop those relationships, but it's possible. So yeah, we'll talk about that.
Awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, as long as you, just so you have a little bit of background with the kiddos. Any other questions or thoughts? Yeah.
What about the children that are like, I guess you want to call it over secure with their parents? Like parents did all the right things, you know, but they're so overly attached.
So that's actually also called insecure attachment.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. So there's two sides to insecure attachment.
Okay.
There's the side where they don't attach to anybody, and there's a side where they're so attached that they're unable to experience the world.
Oh, wow.
So the both are unhealthy. And actually, I'm so glad you brought that up, because what you'll see more of in the Egyptian community
Yeah.
Yes.
is this over attachment,
Okay.
which is also insecure.
Okay.
It's not a healthy attachment.
Okay.
Mhm. And so it's actually really important in infancy that, yes, they bond to the parents, but that there's also
They bond.
individualizing, and like that you also give them time alone. They're not always skin to skin. They're not always attached to you. They have to also like experience other things. Like that's also, and then when they get nervous or anxious, you're there to comfort them. So they have to also, there's this balance of experiencing new things and having the old there to help them deal with the new. Yeah.
Is that part of the reason why like you need to like have like baby play dates or whatever, like
Yeah,
socialize your
it's
kids?
super important to
Yeah.
socialize your
Okay.
kids. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And also, that's for sanity of parents, I'm learning. It's like I want play dates. Yeah.
Excuse me. Is there a certain point that we've determined where babies develop a sense of self? I mean, I know the mirror test works anywhere between 4 months to 8 months, but at what point do babies realize I am a thing separate from the world around me?
Yeah, there is actually a point, Dio, and I forget. And there's a whole developmental theory about that sense of self. I'm blanking now on the timeline, though. I can look it up and tell you, but I forget when that happens. But there are theories about that. Yeah, because initially they see themselves as just essentially an extension of the breast, is what psychologists say. It's essentially just like mom and baby. Like I'm just essentially still part of their body. Like, you know, they're a part in utero, and they're just a part externally. That's kind of like what some psychologists will say in this theory of self. But I forget when that transitions. I'll let you know. Any other questions or thoughts? Okay.
Just wanted to, I'm gonna start reaching out to you guys soon. I don't know your name. Maya, I'm Anne Marie. I'm new to the class, so, but I will be serving, and I want to get to know you guys better. And I know that if memory serves me properly, most of you here in a quarter system, maybe even semester you guys are probably fast approaching your like finals. So I won't like hound you too much, but I want to just like reach out, make sure you guys have my contact info, and see when is good to, you know, chat, hang out.
Cool.
Cool. All right. Do we have Maya's info too?
I have her stuff.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Very cool.
It's in the list
It's
I
in the
sent
list you
you.
sent me. Awesome. Okay, so I have your numbers. I will give you mine so that I won't be weird and stalkery when you get this odd number. So 310